Hi, this is Joanne Shaw Taylor, and this is the Blues Podcast.
Hello, it's Big Boy Bloater here. Welcome to the Blues Podcast. Don't know about you, but I'm having a bit of a strange day, but it's about to get better because I'm about to have a chat with the one and only guitar slinger extraordinaire, Joanne Shaw Taylor. Hello, Joanne. How you doing?
I'm good, Liv. Thank you for that introduction. I'm doing well.
So you're at home at the moment. How's all the COVID treating you and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a bizarre new world. I'm at home in the States. I got back. We had a mad rush to get back March 15th because we were in the middle of a UK tour when borders started closing and things like that. Yeah, and then it's just been. I've been all right. It's I'm not on the road and I'm not sure when I'll be getting back to it, but I'm just trying to make the most of the time off, to be honest. I mean, this is the most time I've had off the road since I was 18, I think. So it's been nice to kind of sleep in my own bed and cook and have some resemblance of a normal routine.
Is that getting a bit long in the tooth now, though, is it? You're sort of itching to get back to the gigs?
Yeah, I'm ready now. There was like a 6-week period where I did nothing. I didn't even go on social media and allowed myself to kind of have a real break from being Joanne Shaw Taylor. And then I had a really productive kind of run for about 6 weeks where I wrote a lot. And then I had another productive run where I practiced a lot. And then it's kind of getting difficult to continue that momentum. Yeah. I'm ready to go back on the road.
Are you like starting to stack up the albums now where you're writing, just thinking, I've got so many albums worth of stuff now. I've been sitting here writing. I've got nothing else to do. Oh.
Yeah, that was kind of the plan of going, okay, this is the first time I've got time off. Because usually I have time off. Usually 6 weeks for Christmas. So by the time I'm done traveling around the UK, seeing family, get back to the States, you've got sort of 2 weeks left to write an album and then you're kind of back to it. So it was like, oh, great, I'll just write 4 albums. And then I realized I don't have 4 albums worth of material in me because I haven't been doing anything. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I got a bulk of about 10 tracks ready to go, I think.
Cool. So listen, I want to go right back to the start for you, if we possibly can, and talk a little bit about guitars to start with. I mean, what was it that got you into guitar playing in the first place? You are in the Black Country, right, and listening to all these old blues guys. What made you think, yeah, I'm going to do some of that?
Well, to be honest, at first I was just obsessed with guitar. My dad played, and my older brother was taking lessons. So I started playing classical at school and did quite well with it, and got in the Birmingham Youth Ensemble when I was about 10 or 11. And then by age 12, I realised I loved playing guitar, but I couldn't really read music. I was kind of just copying what the person next to me did.
Yeah.
I had no classical heroes. I was 12. I was probably listening to the Spice Girls and NSYNC. So, it wasn't really the era for guitar music on the radio. And then made the switch to electric, which my parents were very supportive of, even though they knew I was doing well with the classical. But my dad just took me through his record collection and just said, find something that inspires you. Wow. And he played me a Stevie Ray Vaughan DVD. And that was the one for me, as I think a lot of kind of kids of my generation kind of opened the door into his influences and that whole genre, really.
What was it about him in particular, I think, that caught your imagination?
Well, I think for a start, it was coming from that classical world, which was very, very disciplined. It was quite an exposure to someone who, although technically a great guitar player, it really opened the door that blues guitar, predominantly, you can just kind of put your own stamp on. There's not really any rules. As long as
the rules, that was exciting.
Yeah. And then from him, I went to Albert Collins, which particularly is, what's that technique? How do you even come up with that? It's like, so it was kind of that freedom. And then I think particularly Stevie was just such a great gateway artist for, I was 13 and I'd heard Charlie Patton through my dad and Big Bill Broonzy and Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. But, those are kind of hard albums to listen to when you're a 12-year-old girl and, they're very scratchy. And
they don't have that instant excitement, do they?
It's a harder listen. So it took me, the route of going through Stevie and Buddy Guy and Albert King and then further back. So I think Stevie was great for that as well because they were kind of short 3-minute songs, Love Struck Baby, Pride and Joy. They're great pop songs, and he got a lovely, palatable voice. And the guitar playing is, obviously extremely catchy and very inspiring. So I think that was he was a good gateway blues artist for a lot of kids, I suppose.
Yeah. That's interesting you're saying about that, the 3-minute songs, because obviously blues now these days, a lot of it is much, much longer than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess Stevie Ray Vaughan was listening to a lot of the early guys, the original guys, Howlin' Wolf and all that sort of, rhythm and blues stuff.
The good stuff.
They were restricted by the amount of time they could fit onto a 45, so it was like 3 or 4 minutes. And that was
I've thought about that actually. Because as you say now, I've actually been using the time to kind of put together an acoustic set, which I've never done.
Yeah.
And I've got something like 30 numbers, but it's only like 45 minutes because there's no 10-minute guitar solos and everything. I don't play slide. So it is a very much, as you say, 3 minutes now is pretty rare. But yeah, they were great, particularly for radio play. That kind of went out the window with blues for a while in that kind of theory of being the chorus within the first 40 seconds and, or even better, start with the chorus. But yeah, Stevie was, pretty bang on with that.
Absolutely. So you started off on classical guitar. Same as me. My mum and dad got me one of those, and I thought, this is not a guitar. This is not what I want to do. This is not, screeching loud thing.
Never even got one blister playing that thing.
No. Do you remember getting your first electric guitar?
I do. I went to, it was in a brief period where I know I wanted to play electric, but didn't know what. My brother was very into rock, a lot of Satriani and Vi and that kind of stuff that I don't play. So we went to a Birmingham guitar show, and he was listening to Guns N' Roses, and I'd seen Slash, so I thought, I'll get a Les Paul. And then it was really on the way there that my dad played a Stevie Ray Vaughan album. So then I started looking at a Strat, and we found I think it was a secondhand Mexican Sunburst Strat that I changed the pickups in to, I can't remember what now, it's years ago. But yeah, that was the first, okay, I have the tool now to do this.
That's interesting as well. You're saying you changed the pickups. I mean, were you kind of like instantly wanting to know how the whole thing worked and how it went together, or were you kind of a bit hands off on that sort of thing? Yeah,
I'm still not very good. I think this is the first time since I've been in lockdown that I've changed my own strings for about a decade.
That's such a boring chore though, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, I won't lie. It's nice to have someone who does that for you. But I made a few Skype calls to make sure I was doing it right because it had been a minute. I have terrible focus, so I'm not very good at retaining information like that. I'm much better if I can feel something.
Right, yeah.
But no, I wanted to know everything about Stevie, and I wanted to sound like that. So there was a big experimentation of what's the heaviest strings I can put on this thing and not break my fingers, which are like, that's useless. It's like a toothpick, and tuning down A flat, which I still do, and getting Texas special pickups. Anything with the word Texas in the title, I was a big fan of.
So you got the guitar. Do you remember what the first song was you tried playing on it? I mean, was it a Stevie Ray Vaughan number?
It was, rather ambitiously. It was Rude Mood, which I don't know if you know that song. It's an instrumental on, which I still can't play. I don't know what I was thinking. It took me about 6 weeks to get into the sort of first 4 bars, really. But it did help me master that kind of the raking, the muting over the top of the fret.
Right, yeah.
Which is, I was very keen on mastering that. And particularly, I just discovered Kenny Wayne Shepherd as well, who was obviously in that kind of school. But yeah, I think it took me most of the summer holidays just to get sort of 12 bars in.
That sounds like a good summer holiday, though. I mean, most kids...
Not for my parents.
Wasted doing homework or something, I don't know, but, that's...
Yeah, I wasn't over the park experimenting in narcotics. I was locked in my bedroom trying to be a Texas...
That came later, right?
Yeah, that was the next summer holidays.
So, moving on swiftly then from that one, let's talk a little bit about Dave Stewart. The man who apparently discovered you. I always find that a kind of a weird word, discovered. Like,
I think everybody does.
Always there,
like,
but
Yeah, was I just hiding in a cupboard waiting to be found?
I mean, how did that come about? How did you guys meet?
It was one of those random things, really, that kind of a testament to just getting out there and doing it, and eventually people will find you. My mum had breast cancer, and we were approached by one of the wives from UB40 about doing a charity event in Solihull, which I did, and I'd just done a little demo, and there was a gentleman there that I don't want to be derogatory about, but having just left school, I'd never encountered a character such as him. He called himself Dodger, and he was dressed like Hendrix from Monterey.
Right, yeah.
And then I found out after he was actually called, his real name is Roger Pumphrey, and he's very well known, very well respected music documentary maker. But knew Dave, passed on the demo, and then a couple of weeks later we got a phone call off Dave inviting me down to London to meet him. which my dad was very excited about. I had no idea who he was. Had never, I was 15. I'd never heard of the Eurythmics, and went down, and he was very much. I just watched Being John Malkovich, who's one of my favourite actors. Not that he's been that too much, but I don't know if you remember. He's in Being John Malkovich. The office is like on the 11th and a half floor.
Yeah. And
Dave had this. You had to take a lift to the 4th floor and then walk down 2 flights of stairs. But he wasn't on the 3rd floor. It was like this weird hidden. And he was wearing orange flares and a purple jumper, which I remember being quite alarmed about, given the only men I knew at that point were my dad and school teachers. So yeah, and then we got on like a house on fire, and I was discovered.
Right. Yeah, and the rest is history, eh?
Yeah. Right.
Do you think? Has it been easy? Kind of an easy journey, sort of playing blues and traveling around the world, or is it?
I think being a professional musician, as you know, it's a tough living.
Yeah.
And it's far better than doing something you love to do for a living. It's got to be better than, sitting in an office every day doing something you hate. But the pay's probably better, the retirement plan. But I think momentum's your friend. You just keep going. And along the way, you get these little moments that kind of justify what you're doing, whether that's just playing the blues club you've always wanted to play, or finally touring America, or getting to Australia, or meeting like-minded musicians. So I think looking back, it feels like a huge marathon, but, it doesn't feel that way when you're in it. You're just kind of propelling yourself forward.
Yeah. Just day to day, you get on with it kind of like, but...
Yeah. It has been on my mind of when I get back to touring, am I going to be physically capable of it? It's been a while since I've done a 90-minute gig.
Right, yeah.
And just that getting up every day and doing it over and over. And but yeah, I do miss it. So...
Going to go into training before the gig starts.
That's been on my mind, because we're about to hit massive winter here. Nothing says fun like a polar vortex. And obviously I'm not too keen on being in the gym right now around, germs. Yeah. So, I think I'll be doing I'll have to get like a Mr. Muscle DVD or Jane Fonda or something and start getting back into it.
You can make your own.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Big thing, you could do a YouTube channel,
There's one good thing to come out of quarantine. It's Joanne Shaw Taylor and Lycra.
Yeah.
We'll put that one on the back burner.
So let's talk a little bit about Detroit. I mean, how did you end up moving there from like Willenhall? Was it Willenhall? No.
We were in Solihull at the time. I was living with my parents. They're in Hockley Heath. It was just a happy accident, really. I'd done a gig at a place called Riffs Bar in Warwickshire, Worcestershire. And the support band was American. They were from Detroit. And I'd always wanted to tour there. And I was on a label called Roof Records at the time that didn't really fund artists going to America. So I just said, look, if I book the gigs myself and try and get, a work visa, you all right with that? And they said yes. And I contacted the band that had opened up for me from Detroit. And they said, great, we can get you backline. We can be your band. I just started coming over, and I got an agent, and it was dirt cheap to live in Detroit at the time because it was a third world country, which was just about my budget. So it's just one of those things. I made friends. I ended up staying, and at that time as well, I was like 21. So most of my friends from school were going through university and doing their own thing. So it wasn't like I had much going on in the UK.
Yeah. Is that something you feel like you missed out on, not going to university?
I thought about it recently.
Education.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a chip on my shoulder because I left school at 15, 16, and I hadn't had the best attendance record. Up until then, I was mostly in my bedroom playing guitar. So, yeah, it's kind of, I try and read as much as possible. And I had thought about it whilst in lockdown. Maybe I should do an online course or something, which I ended up doing a creative writing course, which, won't be very useful for my academic career. But no, I don't think so. I think I've had a very wonderful life. I've met some very, very interesting characters, and, I don't have anything to complain about.
Not yet.
Coronavirus.
Let's talk a little bit about. I was reading through the blog and all that sort of thing earlier as well, and talking about writer's block. Obviously, which is something you obviously haven't got now, but you've been through that before, right? I mean, how did you get through that?
It's it's a weird thing with writing that you just can't control it. Or certainly, I haven't figured out a way of doing it. I do tend to write better when I'm under great pressure to provide material. I think never underestimate the power of panicking. Yeah. I mean, I remember doing Dirty Truth, which is my 4th album, and I was in Australia on tour, and I was playing Australia, and then I was going home for like 3 days, and then I had to be in Memphis to record. And I remember Jim Gaines going, "Can I have the songs?" And I said, "Oh, my laptop's crashed and I don't have them. I'm going to have to go back home and re-record them," which basically translated as, "I haven't written an album yet. I'm going to panic and do it in 3 days." And I still had to finish a lot of the lyrics off while we were recording. So I tend to work well in that environment. But I think so far, there has never been a situation where I've had to come up with an album and I haven't been able to.
Right.
And now in the last few years, I've done 6 albums of original material, so the pressure's off a bit. I feel I can co-write more, and, it doesn't detract away from the fact that I can write if I want to. And I've got a wonderful team of co-writers down in Nashville, James House, etc. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those things you've just got to let it be, really, not, overthink it.
You've kind of worked all over the place, songwriting and recording and all that, all around America, Nashville, like you just mentioned. Where's your favourite place now to work?
Ooh. I mean, it was really nice to do the last album in Detroit. That was kind of a treat to be able to go to the studio and then see a friend for dinner afterwards and come home. Because I think, at this point in the game, it's all about making life easy for yourself, and cutting down on the amount of travel when you're not on tour. There is something about recording in the South, all those albums I did with Jim, where there's just a vibe down there of it's so relaxed. It does have a soul to it that nowhere else that I've been does. So that always, I think, impacts it a little bit. Nashville was fun. I didn't really feel a great sense of blues vibe on me in Nashville, shockingly. But it was a cool town to be in, and there's always, musicians about and stuff. So,
that different vibe in Nashville, do you think that affected what you were doing?
I think so. I think it was certainly, so we were in the old RCA building, which I think I was the last artist to be in there that wasn't, because Dave Cobb bought it, producer. It wasn't one of Dave's. It's where Dolly Parton recorded Jolene, and, so it had such a kind of presence being in there. So, yeah, I think each has added a bit of personality to the album in its own different way wherever we've recorded.
And I'm also just asking the technical stuff because I'm interested in the stuff. But I was noticing the latest album you've been working on, it's you've gone back to like no pedals, no effects, nothing, just like straight in the amp. Feel kind of old school. Yeah,
and I think that comes down to what I was saying earlier, in that I'm not that good at technology.
Okay.
I just don't want other stuff to be worrying about. And I just think it works. I mean, I always end up sounding the same way anyway, no matter what amp I use, for better or worse. So, yeah, for me, just a tube scream if you need a little bit, and very low gain on it, high volume, just a little bit of an extra boost. But I just don't think you can go wrong with a good guitar you're comfortable with into a nice tweed amp, I sound pretty much the same whether I'm doing that or through a Marshall anyway, so it's...
I mean, it's classic, isn't it? It's people have been doing it for 70, 80 years now, I guess. It's, they're still doing it. There's something right about it.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Big fan of reverb. Can't get enough reverb, whether that's on guitar or vocal. But other than that, I'm pretty... Yeah, I just... I think working with Dave as well, when I toured with him, he turned up at an airport once with what looked like a giant keyboard, and then I slowly realised it was his pedal board. Who has been lugging that around? It's like, 5 different flange pedals and,
And you spend more time looking at the pedal board thinking, what have I got to hit next? Than
that's definitely an element of it for me, in that it's just one more thing to worry about on stage. It's me, microphone. I put my pedal board to the left so I can kind of see it out the corner of my eye. And all I got to do is hit the boost, and then I'm off and running for the solo. But yeah, it's kind of like trying to do a little bit of a dance while you're trying to remember which part of the verse you're coming back in.
And have you ever had that thing where you're at the gig and you've done your sound check, everything's great, and you go off, support band comes on, moves something, and the pedal board is just slightly in the wrong place. And you find yourself pretty much falling over when you're trying to hit it, and you think, oh, God. Stop.
My previous guitar tech was like 6'5", and I'm like, you do realise I'm your height in reverse. I'm 5'6", predominantly legs, but I still can't reach that, Try and think of us wee folk.
Right.
So you're always doing some ridiculous stretch or some kind of dance over to the left to hit a pedal.
People think it's part of the show,
Yeah. Which is also another reason not to have a support band, because it is just that thing of, having to go sound check and get the stage where you want it, and then you've got to take it all off. And
yeah.
Hey ho.
If you could have any support band or support artist, who would it be?
I always like having an acoustic opener for that reason. And also, it's just there were so many times when I was with a previous promoter that we would always find a guitar player to open up. And I just thought, it's just, how much guitar can you sit through? Between the 45-minute opener and then me doing 90 minutes, I always thought it was nicer to have a bit more of a contrast, an acoustic or a slide or something. So I kind of always go for diversity, and I try and promote female artists as much as I can. So we've been having Sonia Lee out recently.
Right, yeah.
Who's a fantastic songwriter from Nashville. So yeah, that's kind of my go-tos.
Right, yeah. Speaking of supporting female artists, I mean, how are you finding it as a female artist in the music world these days? I mean, the music world's a bit fucked up, but
yeah. What was the music world?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always had a lot of support. There's still some things that irk me. I always get asked, what's it like to be a female guitar player? It's like,
sorry,
pretty much the same as a male, I would think. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to, but my being female has yet to come in to affect my tone. Or I get you're my favorite female guitar player a lot, which I kind of think, well, there's only 3 of us, so it's not really. Just tell me I'm not your favorite guitar player. It's fine. I'm a big girl.
Well, it could be worse. They could have said, oh, you're in my top 3, and instantly that means you're third best. It's like, oh, thanks. Yeah.
I did have a weird comment the other day. I put up a post in tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away on Friday. Who obviously I don't know if you know much about her. I mean, I wouldn't be able to get a credit card without my husband signing off on it, let alone have the career I have. One guy put up, well, I can't listen to you anymore because of this post. I'm like, there wouldn't be a page for you to like if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to listen to, I think it was Anna Popovich instead. I was like, well, you don't have to pick another female. It's not like you're trading out one set of ovaries for another. You can go listen to Eric Gales or... so there's still a little bit of misogyny, I suppose, that creeps in. But by and large, I think I've had a good career and been respected, I think.
That's good. Yeah. My wife used to be in a band with me, and the amount of times we would turn up at a venue and we'd be unloading our van, and the promoter would come up to my wife and say, why don't you go stick the kettle on in, love? Let the boys do all the work, So.
I think female drummers still get it the worst. I've had 2. And they will get asked, when's the drummer coming? Oh. Like, she's here.
Yeah. Well, if you're not with the band, can you wait outside, please? Yeah, I am with the band. No, if you're not in the band. Yes, I'm in the band.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, I mean, there's still a lot of, if you're a female and you speak up for yourself, you're a diva, as opposed to if a guy was to do it. I always think if I ever did the Keith Richards thing of if someone came on stage and I hit them, would I be a rock star like Keith, or would I just be an angry woman?
That time, I presume it's the same incident you're talking about, where he just kind of like takes that guitar and bangs that guy.
Yeah.
Puts the guitar back on and carries on playing. That is one of the most brilliant bits of guitar playing. And
it's seamless. It's almost like the Steve Ray Vaughan string change. Have you seen that? When he string breaks and he just kind of holds the next one. It's like seamless. Same with Keith. It was just off, boom, back on. Brown sugar.
Didn't hit the bar. Yeah, it's great.
I've been working on that. I'm just waiting for someone to come on stage.
Waiting for the right person to, upset you. Any stage invasions? Or, I mean, blues crowds are fairly respectful and polite, aren't they?
They are. I've had 2 situations which neither I kind of realised. I was playing a big gig in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a big outdoor stage festival. And my bass player, I was looking to the left, and my bass player was kind of like motioning, like, look the other way. And I turned around, there's a woman right here just talking to me. And it's kind of like, I'm kind of busy right now. Yeah. I can't hear you. I'm in front of a drummer. And then I looked over and the security guard's like, do you want me to do something about this? I'm like, that would be great. Yeah. But fortunately, I think she was just drunk and happy. There was no chance of me being knifed or Martina Sellis kind of goes through your head. But and then the other one was recently, I think it was the last tour in the UK. And I didn't realise it. I just saw my guitar tech, who's, again, was massive, Big Rob, 6'5", just kind of pick up like a doll and sling it off stage, and didn't realise a man had somehow got backstage, was running on stage and went to grab me, and literally Rob just went whoop and kind of had his momentum work against him. But other than that, I've been, touch wood, pretty safe.
Pretty safe. Excellent. let's talk more about guitars, because I do like guitars, you know, and I think a lot of people do.
Who doesn't?
They're an amazing instrument. I mean, they don't make any sense whatsoever, really, when you break them down. I mean, you look at a piano and you can see all the keys laid out in front of you, can't you? And it's like, well, that makes sense. It starts low and goes high. Guitars are just all over the place, aren't they? You know, but,
it's a weird instrument. Someone described it to me, a piano player once who also played guitar. Said piano's really easy at first, and then it gets harder because you can see what you're doing. Oh, right, I have to hold down a C.
Yeah.
Whereas guitar is difficult at first, but then once you kind of open the door, it kind of gets easier. I'm still waiting for it to get easier. But no, it is a fascinating instrument, and I've really gotten back into practicing while I've been off. Actually, it's been really nice to just put on a Jeff Beck DVD and try. I mean, that's a difficult one.
He's technically so just out there. He knows every single little technique that you could possibly ever imagine.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and it's no disrespect to Stevie, but there's a lot of guys out there that can pull off certain elements of Stevie's playing, and you hear it. I've never heard anyone sound like Jeff Beck.
Right, yeah.
They just can't emulate him. Not really, you know. I can't think of a guitar player that's come through. Obvious Jeff Beck influence. But no, monstrous.
I did a show with him a couple of years back at the Roundhouse in Camden.
I love the venue.
Yeah, that's a great venue, isn't it? He was there quite early, all through my sound check and all that. And I tell you, from the moment he arrived to the moment he went on stage, he was in his dressing room practicing, just noodling away all the time. Didn't come out, didn't stop. It must have been about 4 or 5 hours, just practice.
Yeah, no, he's incredible. We did a show with him a couple of years ago in it was a beautiful gig. It was an amphitheatre in Orange in France, I think. Vinnie Carludo on the drums and Rhonda Smith, one of my female heroes, on bass, used to play Prince. And same thing, kind of rocked up, played a bit of guitar, got on stage, blew everything away, went home, did it again tomorrow, I assume. But yeah, just magical. And he did one of my favourites, his version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh, right, yeah.
And in that setting, sitting outdoors in the south of France in an amphitheatre was just...
What more could you want, eh?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those moments that makes all the sacrifice and the road worthwhile, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, guitars these days, what are you playing, and what are you looking at thinking, oh, that could be my next guitar?
Yeah, I don't really have that many guitars. I think I don't like guitars not being played. So at the moment, it's pretty much my main guitar, which I've had since I was 15, Junior, which is a 1966 Esquire. But I got him cheap on Denmark Street when I was about 15 because the previous owner had attacked it with a knife, as you do. I think he was trying to put in a humbucker with like a butter knife. I don't know what was going through his mind or her mind. And then my Les Paul, which is just a standard 2008 Les Paul. I have an Albert Collins signature model, which I do play a lot as well. When I want to be alone and pretending to be Albert Collins on a Tuesday night. But so yeah, I keep things pretty simple. And then I've just been working with Taylor recently on the acoustic side of things, which I'm loving. I've always struggled to find acoustics for me just because big bodies aren't really great for me, being 5'6".
Yeah.
Lighter, and the necks are a lot slimmer. So I've been really getting along with those. But yeah, I keep it pretty simple. I think the only guitar I really want is I would love a nice 335, or maybe a Gretsch, but again, big-bodied guitars.
Yeah, some of those Gretsch's are quite thin though, aren't they? So it's... Yeah,
and then the dream guitar has always been a 72 thin line. But kind of holding out on that one. I'll find it one day.
I heard a rumour from somebody that you once had a really quite interesting guitar shopping experience with Joe Bonamassa.
I've got to stop telling this story. He's going to stop being my friend. Yeah, I was in New York they was just starting Backcountry Communion, and I'm friends with Joe, and his guitar tech at the time was my partner. So I went out to New York, and they were rehearsing. So I went shopping, and it was the early days. I didn't have much money. But found an Albert Collins signature model signed by Albert in a guitar shop. It's about $5,000, which I didn't have.
Yeah.
Went back, told Joe. He's like, well, what have you got? And I was like, well, I could probably get like $3,000 together. He goes, all right, well, I'll go back with you. And I'm Joe Bonamassa, so they're going to want me to have it and have a photo with it. And so we go back, and sure enough, they make a big fuss of him. And he's like, what can I get this for? And they go, how much for you to walk out the door with it and we get a photo of you? It's like $3,000. I go, great. by it, and then he kept it for himself. It's like, what? And then I mentioned it to his dad. We were on one of the cruises, Lenny, who's a big New York guy. He's like, that's right, you've been such a good friend to him, Joseph. And just guilt tripped him. And then eventually I got a phone call going, what's your address? Albert Collins' signature model arrived on my front porch as a gift. So I personally think he comes out of that story looking very good, actually. He gifted me a guitar.
Eventually, I guess, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm bored. You're a bit slow sometimes.
I think that's just guitar players in general, right? You know, just, yeah.
We're in our own little world most of the time, I think.
I think so, yeah. And I want to know about the fuzz face as well, because this is another a good story of yours, isn't it? When you were at
I know
celebration.
Yeah, the Diamond Jubilee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so I went out to play. My job basically was to stand there with angel wings on and play rhythms to There Must Be an Angel, and then I had a big lead. But it's a weird setup on the day because obviously it's the monarchy. The Queen can't be seen to be endorsing anything. So all amps had to be hidden. Pedals kind of had to be gaffer taped over and stuff. And I didn't realize it at the time. I'd played the rhythm with the fuzz face on, and then I turned the fuzz face off to go for the solo. And I had to walk out. There was a choreographed. I had to walk towards Annie, who was sitting on some steps. So it wasn't like I could just go back and hit the pedal. So yeah, I ended up playing an exceptionally clean, underdriven guitar solo and was mortified. And then when I was trying to leave, Stevie Wonder's drum tech came to find me to tell me Stevie loved my really clean, bluesy tone. So I was like, oh, great. Well, that worked out well.
So did that sway you a little bit for this sort of newfound love of just plugging straight into the amp kind of thing? Yeah,
maybe, looking back. I think also it was a kind of a push to clean up my technique because I'm quite a sloppy player, particularly with my right hand. You know, if you watch someone like Joe, he actually plays very lightly. And I think growing up, I, particularly being female, a bit of a chip on my shoulder about being aggressive to make up for the fact, you know, I didn't want to be seen to be playing like a girl.
Yeah.
But unfortunately it means my right hand's quite sloppy. So I think cleaning up the tone so that it, you know, highlights more mistakes. So I really have to be careful and think about what I'm doing was also sort of part of it.
I thought it would have been the other way around because having much more gain, you would hear, but I guess maybe it's, yeah.
Well, I think my thinking is if I can get it polished, then you can add in the effects.
Right.
And the playing is already there perfect. You're not hiding anything. You're just amplifying it. Yeah. As opposed to having to use pedals to mask the fact that, you know, you're really not playing very fast or, you know,
right, yeah.
You know.
That's one thing I always used to say to a lot of people when they said, oh, can you give, young players a tip or something? And I'm like, well, not really, because I'm not a very technical player. But I always, used to say, if you can play something on a guitar without plugging it into the amp even and just like that, then put all your effects. Because I think people go for all the effects and make it sound really loud because it sounds great that way, doesn't it? And you don't really have to make many good notes like that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I know it sounds really uncool. I'm not a big fan of loud music.
Right.
I don't like loud drummers. I just don't think there's any need for it. And I think that may come from being a vocalist. And there's only so loud I can shout, and there's only so loud we can make those monitors go. So really, that needs to be here, and the drums need to be here. You know, if you're starting here, I'm just going to blow my voice out screaming over that.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. And then, you look at guys like, Jimmy Vaughan, and it's very clean, very tasteful, and it's brilliant. You don't need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. Get the notes right in the first place. You'd be all
yeah, exactly. Why don't you just do your job?
Well, let's talk about singing a little bit. Because, how did you fall into that? I think a lot of musicians, performers, start off on the guitar and it's kind of like, oh, who can sing then? I suppose I'll fall into. Is that how it kind of worked out for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I think like a lot of blues artists, it was obvious that it kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Growing up listening to Stevie or B.B. King and Freddie King, unfortunately, they were amazing singers in their own right, even without the guitar playing. And it was something that I'd never tried to do, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I did love singers. And I think that started early I got quite into Johnny Lang. Right. And that Lie to Me album, because he would have only been 15 and I would have been about 13, so it was quite a big deal to have, because everyone else was 70 or 80, the guys I was listening to.
Weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Kid that looks like me, skinny and blonde, and so I kind of got more in that soul thing, particularly as it was very hard for me to it was easy to fake sounding like Albert Collins on a guitar. Well, not easy, but achievable. It was harder to try and sing like Freddie King, you know, so I had to go listen to the female voices, which fortunately my mom was big into soul music and Motown, so it was a lot of Aretha Franklin and some Etta James, Shaka Khan, you know, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, I just fell in love with it. It was a bit of it took a good 10 years to kind of something click. As I say, I'm not good at being told how to do something. I kind of have to feel my way through it myself, and eventually something just sort of managed to make sense of it.
Are you happy with your voice these days, or do you think, oh, you know, could do more work?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a constant battle just because the amount I tour, it's, you know, looking after it is the main thing.
Right.
And in recent years, I get quite anxious on the road, so I don't talk after a gig. I don't do the meet and greets after anymore. Because, I mean, there's a big school of thought that the worst thing you can do to your voice after you sang is use it again, just do a cool down, and, you know, it's kind of like exercise, I guess.
Right, yeah. So do you have to take care of your voice on the road quite a lot then, kind of?
I do. I tend not to do interviews where possible, or I'll ask them to email me the questions instead. I did go through a phase of trying not to talk, but you just feel like an idiot writing down a message for your tour manager. You know, you kind of feel like a bit of a diva. Yeah, I'd like a cup of tea, please, Les. But yeah, I do try and keep an eye on it. So that's part of the battle. And I like my voice. You know, I don't think it's too bad. I mean, you know, again, I'm white and from Solihull. How good a blues singer was I ever going to be? So I think I did all right. But, you know, and then I was listening to Nothing Compares to You, the live version with Shaka Khan. Rosie Gaines. And I love that big, booming, gospel-y soul voice. You know, I would love that. So it's a constant work in progress, really, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any, like, a lot of, you know, just talking about you know, don't like to talk too much before or after the shows and that sort of thing. Is there any other routines that you have to go through? Like, lots of people have like special teas or kind of that sort of thing, or
yeah,
no drugs.
Yeah, I tend not to drink. I quit smoking a few years ago, which, you know, don't smoke if you want to sing. It's a really stupid thing.
And a lot of people go, you know, oh, if you want to sound like Howlin' Wolf, you've got to smoke 80 a day kind of thing and all that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I could smoke for 80 years and I'm pretty confident I'll never sound like Howlin' Wolf. I have a gut feeling on that. I think smoking did change the timbre of my voice, and I think I did it long enough that it, you know, I got a bit of rasp out of it, but hopefully not too much damage. Not that I'm recommending that as a technique to improve your voice at all. But yeah, teas, throat coat, don't talk, lots of water, shut up, basically, as much as possible.
Is that hard or easy for you?
Very hard.
Is it?
Particularly afterwards, if I have a glass of wine, I get quite chatty and I get very contry. So yeah, that's a bit tough. But, you know, there's worse jobs in the world than shutting up.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. How did you quit smoking?
Nicotine patches.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I went for. So I started when I was about 17, so I had been smoking a long time.
How do you get I don't understand how kids even start smoking these days. It's like,
I don't know how I did either, to be honest, looking back. I was living in London in this ridiculous apartment on the South Bank that had come through Dave Stewart. I was living with a female Jamaican rapper and a French artist from Nice called Mehdi. And they'd both gone home for Christmas, and I was just sitting there and I was bored, and I thought, oh, I'll go buy a pack of cigarettes. That's something to do. And then started smoking 20 a day. There was no, just plain stupidity, I think. But yeah, hey ho.
Yeah.
Big waste of money.
Smoke.
Yeah, don't. I mean, I don't know how anyone can afford to nowadays. They're about $15 in London, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a rich man's business. That's for sure.
Right.
There's a question I always like to ask on these interviews, and
I'm curious. You look nervous.
It goes like this. It's quite convoluted, so bear with me. I want you to imagine we're slightly in the future now. We've gone through to the future, and there's all sorts of great things happening. But we've just found out that a meteorite is going to hit the Earth tomorrow.
I wouldn't be surprised this year.
Yeah. So the world president, whoever that is at the time, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that, he gets on the phone and says, Joanne, listen, you know, obviously the world's going to end tomorrow. We want to put on this massive, massive party. We want you to come and play, do a song. You can have any band you want, and play any song you want, what are you going to do?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. My initial thinking is, do I do one of mine or do I do just a song I love? But then you risk your last performance on Earth being not as good as it could, but then no one's going to remember it because we're going to be dead. Ooh. You know what? I'd probably just play now. There's this. Have you ever heard the Stevie Ray Vaughan Live at Carnegie Hall album?
Yeah.
There's a song on it called Iced Over. He does an Albert Collins instrumental with the room full of blues horn section.
Right.
I'd probably go down that route and just go big.
Right.
Massive horns.
Sing one.
I guess so, because it doesn't matter if I blow my voice out, does it? It's going to be dead in the morning. I would do a Prince medley with Dr. Fink and Michael Bland and Sheila E. on percussion and Rhonda Smith. I wouldn't learn to dance for it, though. There wouldn't be enough time to learn that. And then I'd just probably take loads of drunks and drink loads of red wine and wish you all well. Here we go.
Wait for the end, eh? Yeah. Well,
Yeah. 10, 9.
There's worse places to go, isn't there?
Yeah.
Any again, this is another one that I get all the time and I get asked, and I always try to ask people this question just so I can steal their answers quite often. So what would you recommend to someone who's kind of getting into blues now and wants to be like a blues musician, for a living? Do it, but
I mean, I think I'd give the advice that I got off Dave. I mean, because I don't really consider myself a blues artist. I think I'm probably a blues guitarist, and maybe more of a soul singer. And then my songs kind of fall in the category of sort of rock pop, I suppose. Occasional shuffle. I mean, the advice Dave gave me was he took me out in his car and he asked me to bring a couple albums I loved. And I think I took Texas Flood and Lie to Me, Johnny Lang. And he had a listen. He went, "That's all really good." He said, "But I just think there's more to you as an artist." He said, "What's everyone's favourite guitar solo?" And I said, "I think it's Eagles, Hotel California."
Right, yeah.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "But do you think that's because it's a great guitar solo or because it's in a great song, so therefore everyone's heard it?" And was just very pivotal in, okay, I think you've got something more to say that's not just the guitar, it's the voice, and I think the songs in you. And then he gave me little homework assignments where he'd give me 10 song titles and I had to pick a couple to try, and then he'd grade them back. So I think that would be my thing, is just find your voice. You have something unique that nobody else has. And we all steal off people and kind of wrap it up into our own thing. There's a lot of Stevie in my playing and Albert Collins. But I think I definitely sound like Joanne Shaw Taylor. So I think that would be my advice. Just try and, find out who you are and what's your contribution to the genre or any genre, I suppose.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, I like it. And finally, any unfulfilled aspirations so far? What is there anything that you'd like really
play with Prince? I don't think that's going to happen now, is it?
It's not going to happen.
Unfulfilled aspirations? Not really. I think, I've been happy with my career as a whole. I mean, having this chance to kind of reflect and time off and look back. I mean, I've done 7 albums in 10 years and I've managed to tour America consistently, which not a lot of UK-based artists get to do. I think moving forward, it'd just be more, I think, about collaboration, maybe. I think I'd like to stretch my wings a little bit and maybe break out into some other...
Anyone that you'd really love to work with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that, Alabama Shakes, Chris Stapleton. Wouldn't mind doing some stuff with Joe just because we're such good friends. I think in the early days it would have been a bit daunting, but now being that little bit older, I'm more comfortable in my own skin. And he's moving forward into the production game. I think that could be an interesting collab. There's a producer called David Z, did a lot of Prince stuff and early Johnny Lang stuff I'd love to work with. And then write for other artists, because there's a lot of songs I come up with sometimes that I just know I can't put on one of my albums, Far too girly. So it'd be nice to work with other women. I think that's a big thing for me moving forward is we're working with Gibson to come up with a guitar school that's for girls.
Oh, okay.
Because statistically, girls are less likely to enter into one because they're, it's predominantly boys and they're a bit more intimidated at that age. So working with Ace from Skunk Anansie and Gibson to get that going. So I think that's, something that will be very important to me and be a nice, thing to have done. So yeah, lots of stuff.
Fantastic. Joanne, it's been absolutely fabulous talking to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sparing the time for us. It's been real good fun.
Yeah, thank you.
So if you've enjoyed this, why not like and subscribe to the Blues Podcast right now? All right?
Yeah.